Hello everyone, Zoe is here with another video and another guest. Today I want to introduce James Baily to you, a manager in quant team in Deloitte. James loves to help people. He's very energetic and he encourages students to study programming language, AI, blockchain to bring more innovation into financial system. Let's go and watch the interview. Hi James, thank you for joining
Hello,
us today.
pleasure.
Thank you. So James, to start, for everyone to let them to know you a bit better, can you please tell us a bit about yourself and your career journey, please?
Sure. So I'm a manager in Deloitte's quantitative financial solutions team. I got my way here, I think, over the course of about 7 years. I've spent almost 3 years at Deloitte. I spent 18 months in insurance and 18 months in banking. Before I even started my analytics career, I used to be a proprietary trader for a company called Propex,
Mm,
where I was basically working 14 hours a day, I think from 2 p.m. to 4 a.m., which is right through Australian markets, European markets, US markets, and then, lunch and then stop.
exactly
Um,
right.
Tried that for a bit. I don't know if that was necessarily my cup of tea, but I did discover that I loved analytics more than I love trading.
Mm.
And so I kind of went down this path, and yeah, here we are.
And you're working with data now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Cool. And can I ask about your university as well? Which university did you study and which course, which major?
Sure. So, from the age of about 15, I became infatuated with financial markets. I saw my mum actually get up in the middle of the night to put on trades and then go back to bed again. And one day I asked her, like, what could possibly be so important that you're losing sleep over this? But only for a second before you go back to bed. It's so weird. And she's like, "Do you really want to know?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to know." And so she sat me down at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or whenever it was, and she's like, "Okay, this is a pip. This is the Australian dollar. This is the US dollar. This is how you trade. And these are hedges. And this is,
Interesting.
you can form a portfolio over these things." And taught me about moving averages, and taught me about different kinds of signals, and taught me about commodities, and taught me about shares and dividend. Oh man, it was like a,
Wow,
um,
15 years old. This is
yeah, 15 years
amazing.
old, and she gave me like a whole lesson, Financial Markets 101, at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And so from that
Cool.
moment, I was like, how do I do this for a job? And she goes, "These people are called traders." And I said, "I want to be a trader. How do I do that?" She goes, "Well, you got to study maths and finance." And I said, "All right." Went to all the university degrees, and sure enough, UTS, Bachelor of Mathematics and Finance. I was like, that's the one.
Wow, very
um,
interesting.
so I did that, and then I started trading. And I thought, like, I mean, I did enjoy the financial market side of it, but I didn't enjoy um, the physical trading, I think,
Mm,
part. I more enjoyed the lead up to that. The execution was quite boring, and I think a lot of what I was doing was spread trading and scalping, and just taking little pips at a time. And I thought, this
that's
isn't for
right.
me. I'd rather put down a long-term portfolio and monitor it over time and whatever, maybe. But I think I much prefer kind of like a sell-side analytics, if you
Yeah,
will.
true.
And so, yeah, then after I left trading, I was like, okay, I don't think I'm good enough at what I need to do. And so I went back to uni, and I was like, how do I do more maths and finance? Again, look through all the degrees. And then sure enough, I found UTS, Master of Quantitative Finance. I was like, oh, that sounds maths and financey,
Amazing.
so I'll do
Yeah,
that.
exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, literally. And so, yeah, then during this time, when I was studying my master's, I thought, okay, I'll try different industries, see if it's not necessarily the financial markets that'll make me happy. Maybe there's other things out there that I could be really good at that I don't know about yet. And so I dabbled in a bit of insurance. Actually, funny story with that. I met my employer at a pub
Oh my
when
God.
I was, yeah, I was chatting with a friend of mine, and he was chatting with his friend about insurance and how insurance works, and said, okay, well, if your house is on a slope like this, and then your multiplier is that, then if you have bricks instead of, maybe some plaster, then you have a multiplier of that. If you live on this street in this suburb, if you're a male, if you're a female, if you're this age range, if you have kids, if you blah, 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 and there's your risk rating. And I thought, oh my goodness, like I would love to calculate risk ratings. Like, I think that sounds really cool. It's so left of center. Like, I've never studied insurance
Wow.
before. I think it'd be cool. And so I went up to him and I said, hey, I love what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I wasn't eavesdropping, but can I work for you? And he goes, yeah, sure. And he ended up being the chief risk officer for a major insurer. And so I was like, wow, this is really cool. I just met someone that's quite
Awesome.
senior and quite obviously good at what they do
Yeah, great
at a pub.
connection.
Yeah. And so then I worked at this insurer for about 18 months. And then after that, I was like, I'm ready for a change. Because
Wow.
I did everything there, right? I was doing everything from marketing to finance to business partnerships to this, that. Like, I learned about how to run an insurance company,
That's true.
which
To
was really,
find
really cool.
exactly what suits you, right?
Yeah. And so
Excellent.
in this process of doing different work, I think that I started to learn about consulting. Like, even if it's internal, I really love people and I really love solving problems. I
Communication.
think it just so happened that I was good at maths and good at coding
Yeah.
to be able to solve people's spreadsheets really quickly. And I think for someone that's not necessarily logically and mathematically minded, spreadsheets can be super confusing and super difficult, and something that those people don't really want to worry about. And then I'll come in and be like, hey, it's this. And then like, oh my goodness, like, how did you do that? And I was like, oh, it's just a VLOOKUp. Like,
Exactly.
you know,
Awesome. So getting to here and talking about your math and programming knowledge.
yeah.
Um, James, can I ask you which programming language do you prefer for yourself? And then which one do you think is in demand in financial industry and you encourage a student to learn that?
Yeah, sure. So, it's a very, very broad question.
I know.
I think I'll start at the surface level, and then we're
Sure.
going to work our way down. I think my weapon of choice is definitely R.
Mhm.
From our time together at Deloitte,
Yeah.
you may remember I used to send out a newsletter about lots of like tips and tricks and upcoming news about different R versions that are coming out and packages and ways to solve problems and really cool stuff. I think I really find R fascinating because the
Cool.
community is very friendly and
That's true.
they're very kind of pro innovation and pro sharing. Whereas I think the Python community is very developer focused, if that makes sense, because Python, I think, is a very heavy developer language.
Hmm.
It is very powerful, and the uses that it has far, I think, outweighs the uses that R has. Although some people will argue you can do both in both. I
Yeah,
think Python makes certain things easier, R makes other things easier. But
exactly
because
right.
of this kind of multifaceted approach that Python takes, there's a lot more diversity in the people that use Python.
Hmm.
So I would endorse Python as a upcoming language in finance, especially because of its machine learning frameworks, such as like
Definitely.
Keras and PyTorch and things like that. Um, it makes machine learning and auto machine learning very easy. Whereas in R, I think the amount of tinkering that you would have to do doesn't make it easy for a first-time user, but makes it very powerful for someone that really knows what they're doing. Yeah,
That's right.
that's all
Yeah,
that I'll
that's
say.
right. Yeah. I actually picked Python. Like I quite loved R when I was in Deloitte, but then here because the environment that I have to work is more related to stock and
Mm,
investment, I just found it that Python is much easier regarding the information which is out there.
mm.
So yeah, so I just
Yeah,
picked
I
to work
think
on Python in that
I've
area.
managed to back myself as a consultant using R.
Hmm.
I think it really comes down to your skills, and I think
Exactly.
the corporate world is moving away from the way that you should do things
Hmm.
to um, the solution, if that
That's
makes
true.
sense.
Yeah,
So people are
exactly
not
right.
prescribing like, please use R to do this. They're
Mm,
saying, look, we have an existing framework in Python. Use
yeah,
Python if you like. However, if you can justify using R, then please use R. And so
exactly
over my
true.
consulting career, people said like, oh yeah, like, can we have this in Python? I was like, yeah, sure you can, but like, why?
Mm,
It's like, oh, I heard Python's the next best thing. And it's like, yeah, maybe for you, maybe, but have you tried doing a spreadsheet first?
that's exactly it.
There's
Yeah.
one famous story that I share with my colleagues, that a client once said to me, James, I need Tableau. And I said, okay, sure, I can organize that for you. Why do you need Tableau? And it's like, well, I need a dashboard. And I was like, all right, but how did you land on Tableau? I said, well, I typed in dashboard into Google and Tableau was the first result. And I said, all right, how about we start with a spreadsheet, and then maybe we can design something. Maybe I'll do something quite clever for you,
If
and
it
we'll see how
doesn't
we go from
work,
there.
then
Yeah, exactly. Because
yeah,
I mean, as you know, Tableau licenses are quite expensive,
that's true.
um, especially for a corporation.
Mm.
And so I said, yeah, like have a look at the spreadsheet, see how you go, and then we'll go from there. She said, yeah, okay, cool. Next thing you know, she's like, James, I love the spreadsheet. I use it all the time. And I was like, okay, cool. So do you want to progress with Tableau? She goes, oh yeah, let's talk about it a bit later. And I was like, yeah, fine.
Done.
Haven't heard from her
Yeah,
since. And
exactly
so
sure. Yeah.
it's, I think, like I
Mm.
said, being a bit more customer focused and less like language focused.
Yeah.
I just happen to use R because, you know, some people use that, other people use that. As long
Mm.
as you help the customer, like, I don't care what you use.
That's
Do it
true.
on a pen and paper, you know, as long as the client loves it and it meets their needs, then go for it.
That's true, exactly true. So when it comes to interview, like when you want to interview students who are looking for a job, do you test their programming knowledge, or do you test only their financial knowledge, or you only care about like how passionate they are to get the job and get into the industry? Like which element is more important for you who has that kind of like mathematic and coding background?
Yeah, sure. So I've always endorsed mathematics, not necessarily for its ability to teach someone fast arithmetic, because I think that's a very like a secondary reason for studying maths. One of the best things about studying maths is you learn about logic. You learn about all the ways to skin a cat. You learn how to approach a problem with the end in mind, right? You start with a line, you have a proof, right? You start with a line and the question is get to here. It's like, okay, well, I could go a million different ways, but how do I get to the proof that this equation is a derivation of this equation? So you go, all right, so you back calculate, you say, all right, reverse this out, and then you go integrate, derive, and then blah, 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 and you're like, okay, cool, here it is, and there is my problem.
That's true.
And that's something that you can't teach someone who hasn't studied maths. You can't teach the value of logic to someone that hasn't studied maths. So, I mean, in our team, we accept people from all disciplines. We actually even had a geologist, you would have known him, in our team, in the Treasury and Capital Markets team. And I think his perspective was really quite unique. I didn't think he would be as good at his job as he was. But yeah, one thing that I look for, definitely passion, because if you don't care about what you do, then how can I expect you to perform?
That's true.
Secondary, maths is
Important as
critical,
well.
but not pure maths. Like, I don't care if you're from any part of STEM, as long as you did a bit of STEM. Like, I might not take a philosophy major because it'll be very difficult to translate, you know, calculations concepts and statistical bias concepts and things like that. So I think STEM preferred, definitely. And then thirdly, coding. I've always told my colleagues, and I think you as well, like, I can teach anyone how to code,
That's
and
true.
anyone can learn how to code if they really want to. So I'm not necessarily looking at how well do you know R, how well do you know Python. Please recite, you know, the PyTorch framework and tell me all the things that you can do with it. It's like, I don't care, man.
That's
Like,
awesome.
yeah, like if
You
we have a
give them
client
this
problem,
opportunity. Yeah.
exactly. Like, if we have a client problem, I want you to show me about all the different ways that you know how to solve it.
Mhm.
And so to try to understand how someone thinks, I generally ask this kind of Google engineer problem where I say, all right, did you play any team sports when you were younger, or even now? And usually they say, oh yeah, like I played maybe a bit of tennis. And I say, all right, so you're familiar with the size of a tennis ball? And they say, yeah. And I said, well, how many tennis balls can you fit on a plane?
Oh my God. Okay. It might be stressful then.
Well, I think making this connection, using something
Exactly.
that you're
I got it.
familiar
Yeah.
with to adapt it, twist it to something that you're not familiar with,
Mm,
and give me a good enough answer, because I'm relying on the number of tennis balls in a plane
that's true.
for a particular business decision.
Mm,
And so I need you to be able to be confident and also think about all the different ways that this problem could throw exceptions. Like, for example, fuselage, like wings. Like, did you mean in the engines? Did you mean in the wheels? Did you mean in all these different things? It's like, okay, do you include the inside of the windows because there's some space in between, the inner cabin and then the outside? How many tennis balls can I fit in the window?
that's
Little things like
true.
that
Yeah.
that I'm looking for to show that someone doesn't just rush in and also thinks about what an alternative answer could be.
Mhm.
So it's important to challenge yourself, and also think about the exceptions, and also apply your current knowledge to an unfamiliar problem.
Mhm.
So if you are able to confidently think out loud to me and say, okay, well, James, if you're just considering blah, 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 then it's blah, blah, blah. If you're considering this, it may be between, 5 million and 10 million. I say, all right, awesome, wide range, but thank you for explaining your logic, because now I can see, right, if I taught you how to code and I taught you how to use a couple of techniques, I can trust that you know how to use this for this client
That's true.
with
Perfect.
minimal supervision, kind of thing.
That's a great way to think. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great information, James. Is there any other thing that you're gonna add to kind of like say, like as an advice for student, like for those who are going to apply for graduate program with Deloitte, like, or those who are a student and kind of like they really want to do what you do now in the future? Like, how do you encourage them to get there?
Yeah, sure. So there's one concept that I came across when I was meeting up with my mentor when I was working at a bank, and he told me, you know what, James, if you really want to be fulfilled in your job, then you should familiarize yourself with the concept. I think it's called ikigai. It's a Japanese Shinto thing where I think I might have drawn it for you, the 4 circles, where you
Exactly
say that
right.
which
Yep,
you
I
love,
know.
that which you're good at, that which the world needs, and that which you can be paid for. Now, he asked me, he goes, so James, what are you good at? And I said, maths. And he goes, no. And I said, all right, coding. And he goes, like, all right, like, I don't know, like, who am I if I'm not my maths at coding? And he said, James, you're a people person. You love helping people. And I said, okay, cool. So he goes, you're good at helping people. I think your maths and coding allows you to do that in a very specific way. And I said, all right. He goes, so what do you love? And I said, coding. And he goes, I was like,
Getting to the first
I
one
was like,
again.
yeah, no, I was like, my whole life is turned upside down. And he goes, I think you love solution design. And I think you love getting to the heart of someone's problem and making sure that they're okay, and that you're not solving the kind of surface level problem, you're solving the root cause. And he's like, I'll go, all right, cool. He goes, so what are you good at? And I was like, surely this one's like maths and coding. And he's like, yeah, probably. Like, but he goes, think about that. I think the maths and coding, again, allows you to be good at helping people, but that may not be quite it. And I was like, all right, cool. And I said, all right, so what can I be paid to do? And he goes, I think you can be paid to go around to different people and solve their different problems. And I was like, did you say consulting? And he said, yes.
Oh,
So I was like, all
wow.
right, cool. And so that's what kind of led me to Deloitte. I literally looked up
Oh,
like quantitative analyst consultant, and then up it came.
that
Um,
sounds cool.
yeah, it was actually a really nice story. And so I think advice to younger people is find your thing.
Mm,
Don't don't fall into the trap of working somewhere that you hate to enable a hobby or whatever, or working somewhere that you love that doesn't really pay enough for you to enjoy your life outside of that. I think really try and find that balance, try and find someone to pay you for the thing that you love and pay you enough. You know what I mean? I think everyone's had to take side steps, everyone's had to take pay cuts. But I think there is a line, first of all, and second of all, if the future is there and you're passionate about your work, you'll naturally progress your career. It shouldn't all be about money, because I, at one stage, was highly overpaid for what I was doing, and I was miserable. So I would have happily taken a pay cut, and I did, and it was the best decision I've ever made. It wasn't clear to me then, but my advice to younger people who, looking to move out of home and looking to establish their independence and establish their career is, and I know it's easy for me to say, but like, really, the money will come. Chase what you love, the money will definitely come. If you have to put off leaving home for a year, if you have to put off traveling the world for a year, absolutely do it, because the fulfillment that you will get in your life at the end will be 1,000 times more worth than anything that you can buy with the extra money that you get from a job that you don't enjoy that much.
That's amazing. Such a great advice. Thank you, James. That was
No worries,
awesome.
no worries.
Okay, guys, if you enjoyed the conversation, please give me thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want me to produce more videos like this for you. And comment below if there are any.